A summit without Ukraine. How Russian TV is selling the idea of a backroom peace. On August 8th, on the air of 60 Minutes, Russian presenters continued to develop the topic of the supposed meeting between Putin and Trump. If in the previous days the possibility of a trilateral format with Zelensky's participation was mentioned, now the Russian side is presenting it as the final scenario. The message is simple: the two superpowers will discuss peace, and Ukraine is only an object of these agreements. What the Kremlin is broadcasting, the presenters refer to Trump's direct words: Zelensky has nothing to do with it. There is no need to meet with him before the summit. This is presented as evidence of a special format, Russia-USA, without the intervention of third parties. The Europeans are relegated to the role of extras. The air directly stated that Europe will not be represented at the negotiations. Added to this is the dramatic background, the expiring Trump ultimatum on a ceasefire, discussions of sanctions, speculation about the meeting location, most likely the UAE. Russian TV actively quotes Western media, taking phrases out of context to emphasize only bad scenarios await Ukraine. Hidden accents, shifting the negotiating framework. Moscow promotes the idea that the fate of the conflict is being decided without Kyiv. This is a classic strategy for marginalizing the opponent, onslaught on Europe. Remarks about suffering Europe and its absence from the negotiating table are designed to convince viewers that Europe has lost its influence and must come to terms with other people's decisions. Political bet on Trump. The program's presentation conveys the hope that the American leader will agree to a deal that includes territorial concessions to Ukraine in exchange for a quick end to the war and the lifting of sanctions. Waiting game. Opposite scenarios, from a serious agreement to an illusion of progress, allow for maintaining intrigue and media tension, regardless of the outcome. We remain deeply concerned about what might come out of the Trump-Putin summit. We have seen in the past how Putin seemed to be able to manipulate both Steve Witkoff and even Donald Trump himself, to the point where he would say almost word for word the Kremlin talking points. And there is a concern that the US will try again to push its peace ideas, which are very close to what Russia wants. This is extremely important. This is not a phone call, not a video conference. This is a face-to-face meeting when two such major leaders as Trump and Putin meet, and we will soon find out where exactly they should have concrete results. They are not going there on a whim. When Witkoff was in Moscow, he came back with concrete developments. Now they will move forward with them. And this is not just about settling Russia's war against Ukraine, but also about improving bilateral relations between the US and Russia. I think there are enough points there for both sides to consider the meeting a success. That is why they are so close to holding it. I think Trump's attempts to threaten new sanctions and tariffs have failed. I think the Russians have simply followed the example of India and largely ignored the tariff threats and carried on as before. I think the Russians, particularly Putin, have realized that Trump is desperate for a solution to international affairs when he is failing to do so. He promised to resolve this conflict in one day. The Russians expect sanctions to be lifted immediately once they agree to a ceasefire. Why is this important for Europe? Such rhetoric is a signal. The Kremlin is demonstratively ignoring Ukraine as an equal participant in the negotiations and testing the readiness of the US and Europe for behind-the-scenes deals. For the EU, this is a direct warning. If Europe does not declare its interests loudly and openly, peace may be imposed from the outside in a format convenient for Moscow. History knows examples when the fate of entire countries was decided without their participation. Today, Russian propaganda is clearly preparing the ground for a repeat of such scenarios, this time under the guise of a realistic settlement. And the task of European policy is to prevent this plan from becoming a reality.